W.F. Howes presents an unabridged recording of Jack and Norman, a state-raised convict, and the legacy of Norman Mailer's The Executioner's Song, by Jerome Loving, narrated by Brandon Pollock. Introduction. Early on the morning of Saturday, July 18, 1981, sometime between 5 and 6 a.m., two men would quarrel in a restaurant. Apparently, the dispute was over the use of the bathroom at the former Billabong Cafe, an all-night joint on the corner of East 5th Street and 2nd Avenue in the then seedy East Village of Manhattan. Both individuals were artists. Richard Adan, managing his father-in-law's restaurant, was an émigré of Cuba and an aspiring playwright. Jack Henry Abbott, who had been recently released from prison after 22 years, hoped to emigrate to Cuba and was the author of the newly published In the Belly of the Beast, Letters from Prison. Adan had yet to make his mark as an artist but was on his way. Abbott, who had taught himself to write in prison, had just produced a bestseller. The New York Times Book Review for the next day printed an ecstatic appraisal, which New Yorkers would wake up to read before they heard the latest news about the author. The men quickly moved their argument outside, where Adan tried to calm the waters by showing Abbott a place behind a dumpster where he could relieve himself. While doing so, Abbott worried that Adan was going to attack him or have him arrested for disorderly or threatening conduct since, inside, he had raised his voice when Adan refused to let him use the employee bathroom. He also worried about what the two young ladies sitting at one of the tables inside were thinking. One was a student at Barnard and a native of the Philippines, and the other a resident of France, who had accompanied him to the cafe after a night of dancing. Later, Abbott claimed Adan had a knife. Abbott definitely had a knife. Emerging from behind the dumpster, he again confronted Adan, his anger at being refused to use the facilities in front of his female guests still smoldering. This time, the soft-spoken night manager tried to defuse the situation by turning his back on Abbott while inviting him to return to the restaurant. Suddenly, Abbott pulled out a 4-inch blade, grabbed the victim from behind, and plunged the knife into his chest, nearly slicing Adan's heart in half. Abbott ran back into the restaurant and announced that he had just killed a man and had to flee. The young women fled too, but they didn't leave the area. Instead, they stood a block away looking back at the scene of the attack until somebody identified them to police as appearing to have knowledge about the crime, and they were brought back for questioning. Adan lay dead on the littered pavement. Abbott would soon be on his way to Mexico. Thus began and ended the brief and fleeting literary career of Jack Henry.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?